holding, but I will get rid of it. I'll put a big old noise gate over the
Yeah,
top.
well, we had to make it work with what we had.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Remain Indoors podcast, where we'll be looking at some science news from around the internet, having a grumble, that's guaranteed, and talking about the ways we're keeping ourselves entertained at home. Remain indoors. And I'm joined on this journey by Matt Two Rumpets. How's it going there, Matt?
Oh, well, I set my alarm for the usual time, rolled out of bed despite the fact that it is a massive holiday here in the United States. Just for you. That's how it's going.
Uh-oh, have I faux pas? It must be then. It is Thanksgiving today.
It is, indeed.
Well, happy Thanksgiving, but we've not, this is the morning for you, so I'm not like interrupting turkey.
No. That's much later on, but there was no sleeping in this morning because we had a show.
Oh, right, I see. So normally you would like sleep in a little bit, save your energy so that you can have like full on turkey gorging and drinking later on.
Yes, absolutely. We did load up on supplies yesterday, so we are all set to go for a fun day of holiday celebration by ourselves.
Well, I don't know anything about Thanksgiving at all. So like here, obviously Christmas, we get up in the morning with the kids, you open, is there presents at Thanksgiving? Do you get Thanksgiving gifts?
No. Well, okay, so there's Thanksgiving and then there's this year's Thanksgiving.
Oh, I see.
Normally on Thanksgiving, one would go to visit friends or have... What on earth was that? One would go to visit friends or have friends come over to one's house and cook for them, and then you'd hang out. And it's just like sort of an excuse to get together. Or you'd go, if you're close enough, to hang out with your family. It's just kind of an excuse to sort of get together and eat a lot of food and drink at this point.
Fair enough. And what are you doing in the US? Are you allowed to mix? Are you allowed to go around each other's houses? Because in the UK, at the moment, we're under a lockdown.
Well, we here in the U.S. believe in nothing but freedoms no matter what. So do whatever you want. It doesn't matter. No one cares.
Hooray! And telling us what impact that might have on the world at large is a show favourite, friend of the show, Dr. Andrew Holding. Hello, Andrew.
Hello.
Oh, sorry, I called you Andrew. That's a bit informal. Sorry, Dr. Andrew Holding. I beg your pardon, sir.
Have I got knighthood as well now? That would be cool.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, well there's that's quite relevant at the moment because we've got the New Year's honours list coming up, and Lewis Hamilton is heavily rumoured to be getting a knighthood, which has made a lot of people very, very angry. And I hope no one will judge me, Matt. I've been kind of like getting my popcorn, and every time there's an article about that Lewis Hamilton getting a knighthood, I sit back and people, he's a disgrace. He don't pay no tax or nothing.
Yeah, the joys of living in a fact-free world. Isn't that the case?
And this is why we bring Dr. Holding on, because you are a scientist, a scholar, and a skeptic as well. So you like to critically analyze stuff.
Yeah. On the knighthood thing, though, I've got a question for you, because I think this is something you'll be interested to talk about. What do you feel about the fact that OBE stand for Order of the British Empire? Because I think it's ridiculous that no one's just gone, oh, we could just change that with a little pen.
British excellence, anybody? You just solve the problem? Yeah, done.
That had not really occurred to me. I will have to give that some thought, but you're right. There's no British Empire, really. So it's a little weird to kind of, here's an award that celebrates us colonizing the world, where arguably, I guess we were the baddies then?
Yeah. And when you think, talking about Hamilton and giving it to him, seems that there are people who have turned it down for very good reasons, given the colonial past it's associated with. And as Matt says, there's a simple way to rename it, which is excellence.
Yes, or the Brexit Empire, if we give you guys about another, what year is it?
Oh dear. No, now we're straying into very, very dangerous territory. But a couple of sciencey things related to Thanksgiving and to who we're going to see over the Christmas period. Firstly, why is it we get massively tired when we eat turkey, or is that an urban legend? It's got some kind of chemical.
I think we did this on your on the BBC show, didn't we? When we went and researched it a bit more than I usually would, and it turned out that it is mostly urban legend, because if the blood supply goes to your stomach, your brain would actually die, which would be problematic.
Yeah.
So I thought you were talking about tryptophan, which is supposed to be in turkey, but my memory, based entirely on no research and therefore entirely trustworthy, is that the amount of tryptophan in turkey is actually kind of small. You'd have to eat like 2.5 14-pound turkeys for it to have a real effect. But I had always thought that when you talk about blood going to the stomach, it's no different to like blood going to a muscle when you exercise.
I mean, the reality is you don't generally change your blood volume, and if you start shifting blood around too much and away from your brain is not getting oxygen, and your brain needs lots and lots and lots of oxygen. So that's going to be a problem. There is clearly there are things like after you've had a big meal, there are reasons why you will not then want to immediately go into a marathon. So there are responses to that because you would just throw it up. But yeah, tryptophan is an interesting one because tryptophan is an amino acid, and the amino acids are the things that make up proteins. So any meat will have a reasonable amount of tryptophan in it at the same level as chicken, unless chicken is or turkey even, has a weirdly different set of proteins in it. And we know it doesn't because it's evolutionary similar to a chicken or to a duck or whatever. So it's really, you just ate a lot and your body's going, probably don't want to throw that up.
So over recent years, I've probably been overeating up till about, a few months back. And I really worked hard on not doing that. And it is amazing. With much smaller portions of food, far less often will I want to sit on the sofa and pass out. Whereas actually it was becoming quite a regular kind of old man half-hour thing after dinner. I was like, I'm just gonna sit down for a minute. I'm just gonna rest my eyes. I'll be fine. I'll be fine. And I think it was just to do with the volume of food I was eating too much.
Was it good food though?
No, it was terrible food, which is why I was fat and pasty and why I had to stop doing that. But before we get more into my diet, because that's a whole rat hole, I wish you and your family a happy Thanksgiving, Matt, and I hope you have a wonderful meal. And is that is that the right way to greet you? I don't have to say happy Thanksgiving or Merry Thanksgiving.
Usually you just say happy Thanksgiving and you're done with it. But
good.
It'll be a good meal because the ladies are cooking.
Nice. Okay, so rather than a disgusting meal you've prepared. Good. The other thing then, Dr. Holding, is in the UK, COVID is thankfully, I'm going to be a bit glib here, but is taking time off for Christmas. So we've been told up to 3 families can get into a Christmas bubble and you can have 3 families together. I have to say, I've come under pressure. This is stressful now for me. I've come under pressure from my mother, who's very upset with me because she said, right, when are we coming to your house, basically? 24th or 26th. She gave me and I was like, no, we're not doing that. And then the kids are like, why can't we go and see everyone? We're allowed. The Prime Minister said we're allowed. And here's my thinking. Here we go. You could have a real influence on our Christmas here. Tell me if I'm wrong. They're in a school environment where they're all licking each other's faces and smearing COVID all over each other.
Playing COVID tag.
Yeah, and they have COVID fights where they're like, get me. And they scoop up as much COVID as they can in a ball and throw it. And they go, I hit you with COVID. And then from that, it's only if we were to go to my mother's on Christmas Eve, that's 5 days. 5 days difference between being in that environment and then taking them to a house with 2 70-year-olds, one of which has a heart condition. I'm like, no, I find you annoying. Don't get me wrong. But I don't want to literally be responsible for your death, mainly because of the guilt. But if I'm being paranoid, if I'm being stupid, I'd love to hear it. I honestly would.
Yeah, no. I think. I mean, I've had this with my parents, and I've generally said they're older, they're smarter, because that's what you say about your parents. And I've let them make their own decisions, and they have, when it's been allowed, to sort of come round. And our kids have been in school; they're infectious lumps. And then my dad managed to go and get COVID. So
is he all right? By the way,
he's fine, which almost makes it more annoying.
Yeah.
That he had nearly nothing. As far as aware, he had no real symptoms. I mean, the text messages I've had recently seem to suggest that he's not got any worse. Last time I sort of video chatted, he was walking around a bit bored.
Oh.
But he's lucky. He's nearly 70. He's immunocompromised. It could have been completely different. He did come off because he takes drugs to suppress his immune system, and he did come off those as soon as he tested positive. But yeah, it could have gone very differently. And I kind of said, "Oh, it's your choice." And then when it happened, I was like, was it there? Should I have been that person? But it's hard to say no to your parents.
Yeah, you know what? At some point, you just have to let them make their own mistakes.
Yeah, and my parents are young enough. I can't claim they're senile.
No, Matt, you were just going to come in quickly, and then we'll get Dr. Holding's kind of analysis on it.
Yeah, well, interesting perspective because I was actually talking to my parents about where they live and how they're doing. And they were very much, they canceled all of our family plans early on. Now, my dad isn't really any longer. He's an emeritus, but he was a scientist. He was a research scientist in
What's the word you just
biology.
used? Emeritus.
Emeritus,
Okay, and then that means.
It means the
formerly.
university doesn't pay your salary anymore.
Yeah, basically.
Oh, right. Retired.
But he was a professor at a university.
Okay.
He did research for grants, the whole nine. And their response was, yeah, no, we're gonna isolate ourselves from the rest of the world till this thing is done, including their best friends who were like, can we come visit? And they're like, yeah, sure, as long as you're willing to live in a hotel for 2 weeks before you come see us and show us a test.
Yeah. Well, and this is it. If we'd have had maybe a 2-week holiday, Matt, I might be more open to going and seeing the old people in our families.
But interestingly, my mom made the point that my dad was in graduate school when the polio vaccine came out. Her sister had polio, and pretty much everyone from their age group, which they're in their 80s now, remembers life before they had the polio vaccine. They had malaria too, and she was telling me about how kids would be sent back and forth to different states if there was a malaria outbreak.
Mm.
And as a result, she says, because they live in the oldest county in their state, she says pretty much everybody wears masks and everyone's generally very, very, very careful because they remember the before times, before we had vaccines, when you could literally just be struck down and crippled for life, live in an iron lung, and there was nothing you could do about it.
All right, Dr. Holding, tell me I'm paranoid and that I should just go and do a tour of Essex like we normally do at Christmas.
So obviously you do what you want, follow rules you want, but in my opinion, and it is an opinion based on it, is it's a risk assessment. And I know it's a horrible modern word, but everyone hates risk assessments. But what's the risk is you give it to your parents and it kills them. That's really reality. And you've got to decide, are you willing to take that risk and maybe have that outcome? And for me, I think, I kind of earlier in the year when my parents claimed they were alone and weren't seeing everyone, I was like very much, oh yeah, okay, we'll come over, but you stay at a distance, you go outside. We're not going to be doing that over Christmas.
No.
And to me, it feels like a really high risk environment to have everyone packed together. Everyone gets drunk. Drunk people do not make the best choices. You are probably going to transmit if any of you have it. And what's the impact to you? The impact is you, as you say, you feel guilty, you killed your parents. In reality, your parents are allowed to get themselves killed if they want. I do think they're old enough to make that decision.
Well, my mum does
also
check into this every now and then. So, just so you know, it isn't out of concern for your health in general. It's because I know that she would find time to record before her funeral. She'd be like, I'm going to miss you all. It was definitely Richard's fault. And like she would, that would be there on the day.
The other thing, of course, is it isn't like we don't currently know if it has zero effect on young people. I know through my sort of circle of friends, one person who lost his 50-year-old father, and that's not exactly old. I know from talking to people on Twitter and stuff, there are people who are claiming they get these long COVID symptoms, and that certainly post-viral fatigue is a thing, but we don't know how big that is. It does seem to impact more tissues in the lung, the brain tissue, the intestinal tract tissue. There's evidence for that. And we really don't know what the lasting effect will be for people.
Stuart Neal says, use it as an excuse for not having to see the family. And then there are no arguments and you get to enjoy Christmas with loads of warm sherry. I mean, there is that. It is convenient.
There are lots of people who don't want to see the family anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what I find quite funny about the way this is portrayed. There's a lot of people going, I'm always seeing my family. And I'm sympathetic to people who live on their own and want to go see the family. But to be honest, those are probably the low risk people. People like you and me who have petri dishes for children, we are the high risk type. And when school term ends in most counties in the UK, I think for us it's like
18th.
Yeah, it's like a few days before. Then they're going to be carrying virus with them. And where I work here in the university, we've just had a positive test in this corridor. And so we're isolating, keeping away. And we have all the things in place to try and minimize the risk. But it's still there and it's still happening. And everyone here seems to be asymptomatic, at least at the moment. So you don't know who hasn't and who has, but they're cleaning everything down to make sure that no one else gets infected.
So you used the correct term there, I think, which is between risk and reward, risk assessment, risk and reward. if there was like, there's not going to be a vaccine until 2025, and we're just going to have to live with this, then I honestly think it would be a bit different then. I'd just go, well, this is what we do. This is a part of our reality. I'm not going to not see grandparents. So, all right, grandparents, if you're comfortable, we're coming around. That might be different. But with a vaccine, just there, and it exists now, and it's in this, you can reach out and like nearly touch it. Like, it's close enough that you can go, it's probably going to be one Christmas. It's one Christmas. So for me personally, that risk reward doesn't exist unless we're being too optimistic about the vaccine, Dr. Holding. And I think this is kind of really actually in your wheelhouse, isn't it? All like vaccines and biology.
So, I mean, not a person who makes vaccines, but obviously I do work on biology and I investigate molecular biology of cancer. The vaccine results look really promising, and it's not like we have just one. We have several. There's a few questions about the AstraZeneca vaccine, but, that isn't the only one. And we're looking, if you believe the government rollout, everyone could be vaccinated by April, which isn't a long time to wait.
So I saw this on Twitter yesterday, so take it for what it's worth. But the Moderna vaccine, apparently, once they got the genomic sequence from China, was loaded into a computer, and in 2 days they had designed the vaccine. There was actually a vaccine, the mRNA vaccine, designed in January, and the rest of it's just been getting it into production and testing it. And that is amazing to me, that they could just design a vaccine that fast, but apparently it's been years and years and years and years of work going into being able to design it that fast. And I was just curious if you knew anything about that.
Yeah, so the idea of these mRNA vaccines is you inject the mRNA which codes for a bit of the virus, your cells make that bit of the virus, and then you can develop an immunity to it. And the idea is actually quite simple. The biology and skills behind it is quite complicated, and then also making it so you can actually inject it into someone is, this is totally outside my research, but the whole pharmaceutical business of actually administering things is actually a field of research in itself, and we probably underrate this a lot. So that's where all this amazing technology comes. And then, as you say, actually checking it works on people's hard. And one of the hard things is actually, because we have reasonable measures in place, if you want good stats for your vaccine, you need enough people to be challenged by the virus to see it works. And what's happening is actually in these trials, they've got quite good numbers, but not enough people are getting sick. And you have this, you can actually deliberately infect people, but it's not something you want to immediately go for until you're sure about what the outcomes of the disease are.
It doesn't feel massively ethical, does it? Especially like with like mega long-term effects.
So challenge trials are done. And actually, I think I think it might be AstraZeneca got permission to start challenging young people with virus. It is ethical, but you need to be very careful how you do it. And you need, again, if you've got to take up the risk, the hazard, what's the chance that they're going to die in the next 6 months anyway? What's the chance they're going to get it? The number of people who are going to get infected to make the trial run to completion, the number of people who die if you wait for the thing to come out. And it's complicated. And, that's the whole field of ethics comes in there. And that's
a bit of a trolley problem, isn't it? It's like if we wait until it's super safe, how many people are dying in that intervening time before you put it out and release it, compared to the risk of harming some people in trials or in the wild. That's interesting. But before we move off of vaccines, I did hear one little snippet, and it's one of those things I thought, oh, Dr. Holding will know that. I must write it down. This is a coronavirus, SARS-2, COVID-19, SARS-2. Also, the common cold is a coronavirus.
Sometimes.
Oh, okay. So that's the complicated. That's question one: is the common cold a coronavirus? And B, will this work with the vaccines? Translate into curing the common cold, because that would be aces.
So the common cold, the one that most people catch, is adenovirus, not coronavirus. But some coronaviruses are a bit like common cold, like how we describe. So some people, when they think they have a adenovirus common cold, actually have a coronavirus common cold, and no one bothers checking. People have tried to make vaccines for years against the common cold, and there's just, those challenges haven't gone away. So I think this is a unique recombination of other viruses coming into the population.
Yeah.
And that kind of, I think, has enabled us to challenge it. You've got to remember, SARS, the original SARS, is, as far as I'm aware, now extinct in the wild. There is no example, no one knows of it actually infecting anyone, because we got on top of it in time.
We won.
And that's really what we're aiming for. Well, the Chinese one, really, didn't they?
SARS won. No, humans won, SARS nil so far. See which way this
SARS
one
has definitely
goes.
got quite a few humans. So I think it's...
Fair enough. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And the mutation thing, the Denmark thing, the mink thing, what is that about? Do you know? Have you been following this?
I mean, I'm more shocked to discover how many mink are farmed anymore.
Yeah.
I honestly thought we'd given up on animal I knew there was like a few people, but there was a lot of mink. I thought I was reading, and then this was academic circles, was that do not panic. There's no evidence to really show that this is going to be a catastrophe. It's a good thing they've got rid of the mink, and that will get rid of that form of the virus if it was particularly different. The other thing is, if you look at the mutational data so far, there's no evidence this is mutating particularly rapidly. So we haven't got the situation where we're going to have to keep playing catch up. It looks like if we can get a hold of it, we'll be able to suppress it and get rid of it. But we don't know. The other thing we know which has come out of this is there are people saying that because these new ways we've got to make viruses quicker, we may actually start being able to make vaccines quicker. We may be able to start getting a better handle on flu and get vaccines for flu done quicker. But we already have quite a good process. And that is a seasonal mutational issue. But the question is, maybe we can make more. And this has really got to work out with.
All right, let's get into more of the seasonal than all that doom and gloom and heavy science we've been going into. We're all dads here on this panel, and there is a particular dad curse that we need to address at this time of year. There's many, many dad curses, like the curse of never quite having eaten enough and then continually be looking at everybody's plate to see, are you going to eat that? That's one dad curse, isn't it? And the kids learn to protect themselves against that one. But when they see dad looking at the plate, they bring it a little bit closer to themselves. And they're like, no, this is my food. Right, like that, like animals at the dinner table. Another dad curse is, what do you want for Christmas? So the kids have got to basically spend your money to get you something, but it's never really going to be of a sufficient, like, it's not going to be the £1,000 VR upgrades I want. And there is still...
We know what you want.
There's still dad guilt associated with it because you're essentially just spending money on yourself, or you give them a budget and then you know that the present is going to be terrible, and so you've just wasted that money. So how do you deal with that, Dr. Holding, when they go, what do you want for Christmas, Dad?
What do I want for Christmas? A break.
A break? Can I just sit down for 5 minutes? Yeah, go on.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up so our kids now get pocket money, and they have to buy the Christmas present for us out of their pocket money.
No.
And they can be as miserable as they like, or they can be nice.
Is that
If they're
right?
miserable, we will tell them they're miserable.
And what are you predicting? Your kids are same age as mine, aren't they? 9 and 7?
Yeah.
Mine, yeah.
10 and 8.
Oh, same as mine. So what are you predicting? Are you predicting extreme generosity? This is an amazing psychological experiment.
So I know roughly what they bought. I know they bought their mum. They might have bought me rubbish stuff. And, for their pocket money level, they've been quite generous. They sort of spent about £10, £15 on, maybe one of these card games, that sort of like exploding kittens type things.
Right.
Those kind of, because we enjoy playing them as a family and things like that. So they're not massively expensive, but...
So hang on, Dr. Holding. Their present to you is a present for them to play with you. They've bought themselves a present in the guise of a dad present.
Yeah, but to be honest, at least it'll get used. It's better than me getting like something that's I have to put on the side and say, oh, isn't that lovely?
Yeah,
and it sits there.
You could get socks, or you could get like perfume. Eau de dad. Reeks of desperation and missed opportunity. I don't know, Trumpets, do you get a dad present?
Sometimes, but mostly we discuss it. We make wish lists, and you just pick something off the list, and then it's all very easy. And generally, between us and the wife, we already know what we're getting anyway. But it's going to be easy this year because we're not getting anything. We're just going to get the kids some stuff.
Fair enough. It's been a tough year.
Yeah, well, essentially we're both still out of work until large gatherings are once again allowed to happen. So it's all about saving every last dime and not spending it in case we need it further down the road.
Maybe you could perform tasks for each other. No, not like that. I was just suggesting that she could polish your trumpet. Maybe.
Yeah, well, maybe.
I
think,
meant trumpet.
Yes,
Mucky
of course you
buggers.
did.
Mucky buggers out there.
We're actually going to be doing a chemistry experiment, Dr. Holding.
Ooh, what chemistry are you doing?
Well, we've been cleaning out an apartment for a friend, and the friend said, we don't want the objects. Take any objects you want. And we found some collections of sterling silver, highly tarnished sterling silver. So we're going to be doing the classic electrochemical, remove the tarnish with aluminum foil and or a battery.
Yep. And it's really, really well. But it can take quite a lot of the silver off if you do it wrong.
Oh, well, that's good to know.
So
Hang on, we start with the aluminum foil by itself first.
What items are these first? What kind of silver items?
Like silver, some of them silverware, like table settings, and some of them are just like objects, like teapots or whatever.
So how does it work then, Andrew? We're going to wrap foil around it and do what?
So what you do is you set up a electrochemical cell, and what that means is there's a chemical reaction through the liquid you put them in, and the tarnish is often silver reacting with sulfur in the air because it doesn't react very well with oxygen, but it does kind of will react with sulfur, and you get this sort of purpley yellow patina, or whatever the fancy word is for it, rust. I guess that's what it's looking like. It's looking pretty purple, if not all the way to black, if it's really bad. Yeah. When you put it in, what happens is that in theory, the sulfur goes to the aluminium in a chemical reaction, and the silver sort of stays on the surface. But of course, what can happen, and it often happens when you do it crudely, is you lose some of that silver into solution. So you basically what you're doing is you're doing chemical reaction through a liquid, and that's how you sort of like a lead acid battery would work. So if you ever open up a car battery, you have the lead and you have the sulfuric acid, and the two terminals, there's a reaction through that liquid, and that's the ions transferring from one lump of lead to the other, and that sets up your reaction.
And then you can steal some of that, Matt, to be your Christmas presents to each other. I think that's my prediction for Christmas morning. You're both going to open the thing up and you're going to go, oh, a spoon. Oh, a silver spoon. Thanks. How did you know?
So is this solid silver? Because the usual problem when doing this, if you do it on silver plate, is you can take the silver plate off and just leave the stainless underneath.
It's sterling, so I think it's solid.
You can have sterling plate, I think.
Well, I guess we'll find out then.
But I think if you're boasting, if it was hallmarked and everything, it would probably be.
Yeah.
Then it's probably solid.
We may do a little more research then before we actually engage in full scale.
If it's silver plate and it's that badly tarnished, you can quite easily polish off the plate anyway.
Oh, you and your research, Matt. You sound like my wife when I did grouting for the first time this week. And she came home, and I'd never done any tiling before. And she went, I said, well, I've done the best I could. I reckon that's how you do it. And she went, well, you did some research. You watched some videos. I was like, I could lie. In fact, I should have done. I should have lied and said, yes, I did extensive research, and that's why it's fine. Instead, I went, nah, I guess, I've done a bit of concreting before. I've laid like carpet tiles. How different can...
How hard could it be?
How hard could it be? And it's fine. And I think I did an okay job.
It's the bit where you have to sort of put it all across the tiles and then wipe it back off again. Always worries me when you're doing grouting.
Okay. Now so grouting is the bit where you're filling in the gaps, basically, in between the tiles. And yeah. I didn't know how to do that, and I didn't bother watching a video. So I just sort of used a scrapey thing and put it in the gap, and then I wiped it across. And you're right, it was everywhere. It was all over the tiles, and I was like, this can't be how you're meant to do it. But nonetheless, I then thumbed it smooth and then tried to clean up around the rest of the tiles. So it's quite nice to know that that's actually how you're meant to do it.
Yeah, when it dries, you then just wipe the tiles and it all comes off.
Oh, so I didn't even need to clean it as I was doing it.
Yeah, I'm simplifying, but yeah, when you get grout everywhere, and then you make the strip, you sort of run a fingernail for it, or whatever, to make it look the right shape. But then the tiles, it dries, and grout won't stick to tiles, is the theory.
Oh, so I was sitting there the whole time going, oh no, it's all over the tiles, and I was sitting and cleaning it up as I was going. It took forever. All right, well, there we go.
So we did it with black grout in what I did the London Underground white tiles.
Sure.
Yeah, so we did that with black grout in a kitchen we had. And yeah, there's just black everywhere.
But anyway, I felt quite manly. It's quite a manly task to have completed in a sexist, old-fashioned kind of way. But yeah, so I now know how to grout things. And tiles, Matt, was very impressed with myself.
That's very nice. I actually have had recently the pleasure of using one of my rotary tools and a cutoff wheel again on metal,
Nice.
which always makes me feel like excessively manly. But I had the best spousal experience
Oh, go on.
one can have.
Tell us.
Because again, cleaning out the apartment, you can imagine the main reason I'm there is because there are lots and lots of heavy things that need to be toted down to the trash.
Your muscle.
And we've got one of these big hand trucks, one of the dollies with the thing that folds out. So you can load like 3 or 4 or 5 55-gallon contractor bags full of paper and metal onto it. And they've got to be lumped around and tossed into piles. And we were almost done. And one of the tables, it was like a medium-sized table, not like a full-size dining table. One of the tables, legs had come off of it. And we were down to one of the last odd lots. And so my wife was sorting through something, and I was like, okay, I'm going to load up the hand truck. And so I put the table on the bottom, and I stack all this stuff on top of it. My wife comes around, and she's like, that's not going to fit through the door. I was like, yes, it will. No, it won't. Yes, it will. I said, it absolutely will fit through the door. Okay, but it won't fit through the elevator. I'm like, yes, it will. No, it won't. Yes, it will. I said, fine.
High risk.
I'm gonna take it out.
Yep.
And if it doesn't fit, you're welcome to laugh at me, film it, put it on social media, and follow me around all day long and tell me how wrong I was. And you know what?
Too high risk.
You know what?
Did it fit?
You know what?
It fit.
Totally fit. It totally fit.
I
Totally fit. And she was in the elevator like, I still can't believe that fit.
How sure
I
were
still
you?
can't believe you got that in there.
How sure were you?
100% sure. It was like, I looked at it. I'm like, there's no way it's not going to go onto the elevator. What are you, nuts? But anyway, as I pointed out to her, the main reason that I was having so much fun with it is because generally speaking, I'm completely wrong about those sorts of things. So,
oh, mate, right. Honestly, we'll get this back. I've got interesting science, I promise, coming up. But obviously, I told you, the Dad Hub guys, about when we first moved into our house, the guy showed me the water stopcock, and it was like in the tiles, and he'd left a tile off so that you could just remove it and then turn the water off. When we got our boiler changed, well, actually leading up to getting our boiler changed, I was telling her the stopcock is in the wall, and she's going, don't be stupid. I'm like, no, it's here. And I go to do the tile, and he's tiled it over so that it's now just looks like a bathroom wall. I'm saying, no, it's in, he showed me it. He's like, no, you're misremembering. It must be somewhere else. It's not going to be in the bathroom wall. So a couple of years go by, we get the boiler changed. Obviously, I need to turn off the stopcock. And the guy's, where's the stopcock? I'm like, oh, no. Well, I thought it was in the wall, but she had been so adamant with me that it couldn't possibly be that I was looking all around the house for it. At some point, I just had to go, right, boiler man's here. I've got to go for it. I've got to smash the tiles in the wall and just go with my gut. And if I get told off, I get told off. So I did it. I went for it. I went for the tile that I was sure it was, chipped it off, and it was just wood behind it. Complete wood. No stopcock, no gap, no nothing. I'm like, oh my God, she was right. I'm completely wrong. Another 20 minutes goes by. I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? I've just got to keep smashing tiles. So I go up one, smash another tile, wood again. I'm like, well, I'm in it now. So I keep going up, and like 3 tiles up, there's a hole, there's the stopcock. I'm like, imagine if I'd have been wrong. But anyway, she'd managed to convince me. She'd managed to convince me for years that I had dreamt this encounter where the stopcock was in the wall.
I'm just glad you got in 3 tiles.
Huh?
There's only 3.
It's 3. You could have been like...
Yeah, it could have been more.
At some point, you're going to be sitting there going, what's the best search algorithm to maximise the chances I find the tile?
I'm just this crazy guy hammering tiles out of the wall going, it's here somewhere, I swear. It's here
Your wife
somewhere.
would definitely at tile 10 start questioning your sanity.
Yeah, well, she wasn't in the house, so I was like fully just sweating, going, oh my God, the more I destroy, the more I'm going to get told off. But look, let's finish up. We've got about 10 minutes or so here, Dr. Holden. Last time you came on, we never had a chance to talk about the solar system and how it was formed, because I was talking to my kids about it. But what was actually interesting, aside from the solar system formation, was actually the way the sun is formed. And something that I don't think we really think about is that our sun was born in a big cloud around a bunch of other stars. So at some point, we were in a nursery surrounded by our twins.
Yeah, a stellar nursery.
Yeah. And then, but now we're like completely on our own, just this one ball of nuclear gas exploding, nuclear gas. Where are our siblings? I miss them so.
I mean, they're still around. I think you're just underestimating how big a stellar nursery is. They're huge.
Oh, really?
Space is big, yeah. So you know Star Trek, they have like these nebula and they fly through them all really pretty and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not much gas in a nebula. It's really, I mean, I'm sure there's some dense ones, but most of them are really empty. It's the same with the asteroid belt. You know in Star Wars, they fly through and it's like getting smashed in every direction. You could probably stand on one and look and not see another one kind of thing. Space is quite big.
So, like our asteroid belt, the one in between Mars and Jupiter, if you were to stand on an asteroid there, that you wouldn't see another asteroid, would you?
Not like flying towards you or anything. No, you might, if you've got a big one nearby, you might be lucky. And you can see this because you can go and find photos where they've landed landers on some of these now. And usually there's nothing else around in the picture. It's pretty dark.
Yeah. So are the other stars that we were born with, they're just where they were formed near us. So our nearest star now, if we fly to it, will that be one of our twins?
So some of it's shifted around, but that's a good question. I actually don't know the answer how well it remains, but as we circle the solar system, so the galaxy, things are moving slightly different rates because things nearer move slightly faster and further away, but they take such long time for anything to move. I'll be surprised if we move far from any of our stellar nursery.
Yeah, well, it just seems so. It's almost cruel how far away and how separate everything is. Obviously, they didn't have humans in mind when they created the universe, but like even your closest brothers and twins, even if we stayed where the same distance as when they formed, it would still be like impossible to reach.
Well, the nearest stars, that's the one thing in space that people do overestimate is how far away the nearest stars are. So they're only a few light years away, which means that light takes a few years to get there at the speed of light. But that's not that far in the sense that if you can head towards it, a generation ship could actually get there.
Okay, so the last thing I wanted to ask on that was, can we pin down like where the star was born? So like you were saying the things that are closer are going faster, and the things that are further away maybe rotate slower. Do things go forward and backwards, or have we stayed the same radius away?
So everything, because of the conservation of angular momentum, that wonderful phrase, everything sort of keeps spinning the way it did when it started. So that's why the planets spin around mostly. It's because as that gas condensed, it's all spun around, and that means they have to keep that momentum going because there's nothing really to slow them down. So most of the stars, you can work back. It's as soon as the mass gets above 3 objects, or even at 3 objects, the maths becomes impossible to be absolutely sure. But you can, estimate back, and you can have a good idea where everything's worked. But to be honest, most of the stuff will be circling the same galaxy. We haven't had a galaxy collision. So, you look at the galaxy, looks a sensible shape. You can have galaxies, of course, where they collide and everything gets flung in random directions.
Right,
and that will eventually happen to the Milky Way, but you don't need to worry about it.
No, it's going to be a while. Well, people say, it's beyond your lifetime. I fully intend to be in a robot body with my brain's consciousness slowly transferred into a computer brain so that I have a continuation of consciousness. So
I have to so Mark in the chat has said the Star Wars asteroid belt was a recently exploded planet. So he's pointing out that, of course, Alderaan would have been, fairly in the same place. But, of course, my response to that is it isn't the only asteroid belt they went into, because they also have one in episode 2. Where Obi-Wan is chased by Boba Fett's dad.
Right,
and I'm sure there's another one in Empire Strikes Back.
This is Star Wars, right? Okay, so this is Star Wars. I'm not a fan of Star Wars. I've always thought it was a bit just like janky, and you just spend the whole time like just rage watching it, just going, what? Why is there gravity there and not there? That's just it's garbage. And
I think Star Wars is an amazing example of someone who has a really good idea for a world, an okay idea for a story, and should never be allowed to write a script.
I don't know. The story's a bit like meh as well. But go on, Matt. Go on. Make the case.
All right. I'm not going to make the case for the whole series. I will make the case for the original movie, because the original movie was really, really something. It was a game changer when it came out. And as a kid who saw it when it came out, I feel like I am authoritative in voicing that opinion. But what made it work and I think Dr. Holding was on it right there, is that when he made that movie, he was not who he was today. So the director and the actors all basically ignored 90% of what he suggested and just went with a really good story with some interesting romance underneath it. And so I don't know. I still find the first one fun to watch, even as dated as it is now.
Now, I'm no hater. I'm not a Star Wars hater. I've watched all of them, and I like the newer ones better because, you know, I like the cinema movies where it's a big kind of pow, pow, just like loads of lasers and explosions. And on that level, I can really enjoy them. So I've got like no general hatred. I don't reject them out of bat. Rogue One.
Rogue One.
Yeah.
Amazing film.
Rogue One was good.
A really good film. Unfortunately, the plot, which was the best part about it, complete rip-off of Halo Reach. Halo Reach. Do you know that game?
I'm aware of its existence. It's not one of the Halos I've played.
So yeah, they were on the planet Reach. The whole planet gets glassed, so it was always going to be a one-way
That
mission.
isn't the entire plot though. Most of the plot is what they actually say the plot is in the previous movies.
Just saying, it's a rip-off. Anyway,
well, they kind of set the plot up in 1977, so you know.
Also, fine, you can have that. But maybe Reach ripped off Rogue One then. But also, The Mandalorian, the one on telly, is excellent, incredible, and I love it.
So I love The Mandalorian, but I find it an amazing example of how clearly everyone has decided they like something, so everyone likes it. Because as a thing, when I put it on at the moment, the thing I like about it is it's a really simple Western, not very complicated, and it's just chill out to. Now, I'm sure if another person came up with that without the Star Wars sort of branding and just had a space cowboy, it would never succeed on the same level.
Counter argument, Firefly, which was basically that, and it was good, and no one knew about it, and it wasn't attached to a bigger franchise.
Counter argument, Cowboys versus Aliens.
The film, that wasn't very good.
That was my counter argument.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and Firefly did get cancelled.
Yep, true. But Mandalorian doesn't, so it's got enough momentum behind it to carry on.
Yeah, and I like Mandalorian, but I think it's an interesting that it's someone just in the comments, Sam has just said Mando is Western reskinned as a Star Wars costume. That is what the original series Star Trek is as well, the Kirk stuff. That was all Western stuff. And it was Western in space because that's what people wanted back then. And I find it interesting because half the issue I think today with getting good TV is getting someone to commission it, getting it onto like Netflix or whatever, or Disney Plus, and being allowed to run far enough to make it enjoyable. And I think some really good things just never make it off the start line because people want to play it safe. And Star Wars as a brand, of course, means people will take more risks because you kind of know if we make a Star Wars thing, it will sell. Even Solo didn't exactly get 0 people into the cinema. They got a number. I don't know if it ever made a profit. I think it scraped through in the end. But for a movie with that level of budget, the fact it's even scraping nearly equal is incredible. How many people actually asked for a Solo movie?
No one.
So, just finishing up Mandalorian, enemy of the week type stuff, which I kind of like. And there was no, if there was no pressure on it, and there was just, say, 5 seasons sitting on Netflix ready to go, you could just chew through them. I think nowadays with stuff like this, and because it's Star Wars, there's a build up, and every episode's got to be amazing. And since no episode's amazing, you go online and immediately it's like rubbish every time because they're waiting for it all week. It wasn't as amazing as I'd hoped. But interesting, you say TV series that don't get a chance to run. If I find a TV series now that's got 8 seasons and everyone says I should watch it, I never start at season 1 because by the time you get to like season 3, 4, the characters they've already made their mistakes. They've changed things around. Like, some characters are like have a different actor because it didn't work out. So it's barely worth tuning in for season 1. So I just started watching Veep, and I started at season 3, knowing full well I was going to miss it. But I want to dive in when it's already there. I don't want to watch them making all their script writing mistakes and character errors or whatever. And you see that, a character that's there for 7 seasons, he had a tick in season 1, and they abandoned it in season 2 because I don't know, it wasn't PC or because they couldn't keep it up, or that actor got bored with it. Yeah.
Have you watched the series Dark on Netflix?
No. Tell me about it.
It's in German. So if you want something which has got one, it has every trigger warning possible. But the other thing is it's this idea, and it's built in time travel and all sorts of physics, and it's all, it is science fiction. It's not science fact, but it plays around with it, and it's only got 3 seasons. It's in German. I think, yeah, you can watch it dubbed or you can watch it subtitles. And it's absolutely incredible for the exact opposite of what we're talking about in Mandalorian. It will totally and utterly baffle you, but it does in the end pay off.
What's
and
called Dark.
What they've done really well is try and make a set of rules, which for the most part they're consistent, but sometimes they break the rule, and then they explain later why that person could break the rule, and it's because they knew more than you did.
Okay, Dark. It's called, yeah.
Yeah.
Dark. All right. I watched the. I can't. I'm not reading whilst watching a thing anymore. I'm not doing it. I used to enjoy subtitles in the before time. Not doing it anymore. I will do the dubbed version, but the trick is look at the character's eyes. Like if you notice something's out of sync, don't look at the mouth. Always just look at the character's eyes.
We're completely the opposite. We run subtitles even on stuff in English now, so that we can understand it properly. It's amazing. It's a game changer. Subtitles. Yeah, definitely.
Fair enough. You should do that with any kind of English reality soaps, like I don't know, The Only Way is Essex or whatever. Have the subtitles running for that.
You have to.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we'll sit there and suddenly, because sometimes Amazon will just cut your subtitles off for no reason whatsoever, and we're sitting there going like, why am I having a hard time understanding? Oh, the subtitles are off again, and then we cut them back on, and it's all better.
Wow, you guys are nerds. No, that's far too much reading, and unfortunately, we have a little too much remain indoors in the bag now. Dr. Holding, thank you so much for joining us. I know you cycled especially.
Yep.
To come and get your equipment.
That's because where I was going to host this, I suddenly found all the laundry was over the place, so I then had to move to my secondary studio, i.e., not my bedroom,
i.e., the office. Wow, you came all the way to work just to do this.
I've got students to deal with in them. I've got students to support. They're not allowed into the lab on their own, unsupervised, apparently. Because
it sounded
that
sinister.
Would be dangerous.
The way you just said it sounded sinister because you rolled up your sleeves and went, "I've got students to deal with. I'm going to deal with them. They're not they're not double blinding hard enough in their tests. So I'm going to show you a thing or two." You are at Andrew Holding on Twitter,
on Twitter and on Twitch. If you want to watch me play Star Trek computer games.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay. Sorry. No. Go. Why? Who? You're playing a Star Trek computer game?
Because they're fun. And so I did the 2 original series ones, and I then discovered there's a Next Generation one. And we've been playing that every other Thursday.
So you went from Western Star Trek in space to social worker Star Trek in space. Excellent. Well, go and check out his Twitch stream. Search for Andrew Holding. And Matt Trumpets, you are at MattPT55.
That's the number.
Good. Follow Matt. Do that. How many followers have you got on Twitter?
Somewhere between, I think, maybe 1,500 and 2,000.
That's not bad. I've got more than that.
Don't know. I mean, I don't keep track of such things.
It must be because I'm handsomer than you, especially since I shaved off all my unnecessary hair. There was comments in the chat room.
Everyone,
did you change your hair? Sorry, I didn't notice.
I did. I shaved it at number 1. I was going to let the kids do it, but my boy just refused. I said, "Come on, son, here's the clippers. You can have a go. You can do it." He's like, "Nah." Because I don't think he was scared he was going to get it wrong or like hurt me or something. So he didn't go for it. But yeah, number 1, that's my comfortable state of affairs. There is very little use for me now as a 40-year-old married dad in a lockdown. What good will being pretty do me, Matt? There's no advantage to aesthetics. I may as well be utilitarian.
I don't know. You still got to go out and get the odd groceries, so
With your face is completely covered. Oh, and I took my wife's car out, forgot about face coverings, and if you look on my Twitter, I posted a picture of it, but it was literally pink unicorns and fluffy rainbows, and that was the only mask I had.
The only thing I could actually see was your daughter's expression in the background when you took that picture.
Okay, well, that's the one I shared with you guys. The one on Twitter doesn't have VV in it, but yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, go and see me in a unicorn face mask on Twitter. And I was just like, I just walked into the shop and you just got to be bold and just be like, "Yep, I chose to wear this unicorn rainbow face mask." Yeah.
Well, I would just point out that with our faces covered, your hair matters all that much more.
or maybe it just doesn't matter at all. Go and follow Matt at MattPT55. Follow me at Spanners Ready or Richard Reddy on Facebook. Come and be my Facebook friend. If you want some 90s music and you are a Spotify customer, if you use their streaming service, you can search for Spanners 90s Radio on Spotify, and it is just me chatting insanely into my mic in my shed by myself with some 90s tunes. You can leave some requests there as well. It's a load. Go check it out. Go check it out. Just listen to one episode. It's not so much to ask, is it? Just one. I'll link it in the show notes. All the cool kids are doing it. It's 90s and everything. And not all of my stories are boring, but they are all rambling. Thanks for tuning in today. Follow Dr. Andrew Holding, Matt PT55. This was Remain Indoors. Work hard, be kind, and have fun. And remain indoors. Oh, that was more sinister than I intended it to be at the end. Remain indoors.
The Halloween edition.
Yeah, Halloween's been and gone. Let's see if I can make it sound even more evil by turning on the bassy thing. Remain indoors. Does that sound sinister?
Excessively.
Well,
so.
it did till you said, "Does that sound sinister?" And then, well, that did.
Hang on. Remain indoors.
That doesn't sound sinister.
Does that sound sinister? Remain
That
indoors.
does. That sounds like someone's escaped a Charles Dickens novel and is about to.
This is my it's like almost like amateur radio, isn't it? It's the hi guys, welcome to blah blah blah, and that's the like in the film. This is what the radio sounds like in the background. No, you're not picking up on that movie.